girls, and welcome to Season 3 of the Hey Girl podcast with my mom, Bethany Needham. Each week, guests will share their amazing stories of following Jesus on all kinds of journeys. I hope their stories inspire you to run your race in your place. Thank you so much for listening.
Hey listeners, welcome back to another week on the Hey Girl podcast. So excited that you're here. And I'm especially excited because today I get to introduce you to a young woman I met through the Hey Girl podcast. Of all of the things that I might have hoped or dreamed would come out of starting a podcast, I never imagined the people that I would get to connect with and meet online and get the, privilege and just the incredible opportunity to hear their stories, to get a glimpse into their life. Thank you, Instagram. And Tiffany Allen is one of those people. She is a photographer who does beautiful, beautiful work. So maybe you want to pause this. In fact, you should pause, go follow her on Instagram. Tiffany is phenomenal. I absolutely love her photos, her style, just all the things. And never mind the fact that on her Instagram, you're also going to find pictures of her adorable tiny house, her beautiful baby girl, just their whole family. I love everything about them. So today's episode, we get to talk life. It felt so much like sitting down with a girlfriend, at a coffee shop, catching up. It was relaxed and fun. I just enjoyed hearing just all about her life and all things Tiffany. Tiffany, I loved you. I really hope that you listen to your own episodes so you can encourage yourself. But my dream right now, and I'm not even kidding, I am starting the process of planning this out. I want to get Tiffany out here. Actually, I have a few of my guests I want to bring out to New England. We're going to do like a New England tour. It's going to be a blast. And Tiffany, you're going to have your camera, because if anyone can capture the beauty of New England, I have full faith in you and your camera skills, girlfriend. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee or a glass of water, whatever's your preference, hot cup of tea, I don't care, because no matter what, you're going to so enjoy this conversation with Tiffany Allen. We are back with a brand new guest, and this is an extra special one for me because, Tiffany, we know each other through Hey Girl.
Isn't that crazy?
This is kind of a fave for me. So, first of all, the first thing that stands out is your photography. When you followed me on Instagram and I followed you back and saw your pictures, I'm like, this girl is so talented. Like, ridiculous. So that's a shout out. People need to follow you. I'm just saying. Secondly, you guys were building a tiny house, and I am obsessed with tiny houses. I think they're so perfect. Like, I want to live in a tiny house someday. Maybe I'll buy yours if you decide to like either build another one, or you're like, okay, we've done the tiny house life. I'll just drive up to Texas, hook it on my Pilot, and drive away. No big deal.
I'll do it. I mean, hey.
Not only did you you built a tiny house, but you built one that when I see it, I'm like, if I built a tiny house, this would be it. Like, you and I share stylistic preferences. I'm just making that term up. But my favorite, and I leave it till last, is you actually reached out and you wrote me, which we won't get into it, girls. It was our conversation. But you reached out and private messaged me. I was on vacation in Maine. I was waiting in line. You don't know this side, obviously, but I was waiting in line. We were going to this breakfast diner and your message popped up. And I was just so humbled, first of all, that you even reached out to me. But secondly, I remember looking at my husband being like, this girl like just wrote me. She's from Texas and she listens to Hey Girl. And like, we got to talk a little bit about ministry. At that time, we had similarities, like where you guys were at, where you didn't know it at the time, but I was actually getting ready to step out of youth ministry. And that's kind of where this all began. And we started actually like communicating more than just you listening to the podcast. I felt like I knew you in that moment. So you tell me, is that a pretty fair description of the beginning of this beautiful friendship?
Yeah, it's a really fair description. And what's funny is after I reached out to you and became a obsessed Hey Girl listener, I found out that one of the girls in like my, I don't know, online birth month group or whatever you want to call it, she's friends with you in real life. So she reached out to me and she was like, hey, why did you add her on Facebook? And I was like, hey, why are you friends with her on Facebook?
Wait, who is this? Do I know this?
Katie and Andrade? Is that right?
Katie Andre?
Yes. Yeah, we have babies at the same time.
What?
Yeah. She was like, she's the sweetest. So we're connected like through that too, and you didn't even know.
I had no idea that you knew Katie. Okay, first of all, Katie, if you are listening, the fact that you're calling me the sweetest just seems so backwards. Katie is one of the greatest human beings that are alive and existing on this planet. And her whole family. They're amazing. Okay, keep going. Sorry. I was just literally like, you just blew my mind right there.
No, yeah. I feel like we have a lot of similarities as far as our paths, and even more than you probably realize. So whenever we kind of connected and I was like, I'm going to message this lady that does this podcast that probably has no idea or no time to talk to me at all. And then you messaged me back and I was like, oh, see, there are good people in the world. Well, thanks for messaging me back and being an encouragement.
Literally my pleasure. So here's the thing. I am so excited to hear your story today because I'm just like one of your Instagram stalkers that is so excited to see kind of beyond the Instagram filters. Tell me your story.
From the beginning, I grew up military. So my dad's in the Air Force. My parents were stationed in Alaska when my mom was pregnant with me. And due to some medical issues they found out that I had, we ended up going to San Antonio where I was born. And then from San Antonio, we moved to Charleston, South Carolina, which is kind of what I call home. We lived there for about 10 years, which is very strange in the military community to live somewhere that long, but my dad was gone a lot, deployed a lot, and I had some annoying medical stuff. So we kind of stayed put, which was great because my parents' family all lived in South Carolina as well. So I was able to grow up kind of around family, even being military. I think I was 10 or 11 when we moved to Texas. I was homeschooled. So we did what's like called a homeschool co-op.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I had science class with other kids. We had a volleyball team. Here in Texas, they had a football team because football's the thing.
Wait, you had a homeschool football team?
Yes.
That might be the coolest thing I have ever heard of.
Yeah, and they were the Wildcats. And this was around like what was that movie with Zac Efron?
High School Musical.
Around the same time. Everybody was like, yeah. The Wildcats. So I met my husband through the homeschool co-op, which is so romantic.
You married Zac Efron.
I met my husband, Casey. Actually, this is even more embarrassing. We met in a ballroom dance class that our parents forced us into. Yeah.
Oh.
Homeschoolers too.
It was an arranged marriage.
But what's funny is we did not like each other because he is very outgoing. And by very, I mean very. And I am very not outgoing. I'm very quiet and reserved, and it takes me a while to kind of talk. So now that you have me on this FaceTime thing, I'm like trying not to stress out, but it's fine.
You're good.
So anyway, we knew each other, but we weren't really like, we didn't date or anything. We just kind of knew each other. After that, we moved to Germany, and I lived there through the rest of my high school years. And then I graduated and decided to move back to Texas, which was a total God thing. I would not have moved back and married my husband had God not said to me, you don't need to stay in Germany, Tiffany. You need to go back to Texas. And I was like, no, I want to stay in Europe.
So you like Germany?
Oh, I loved it. I would move back tomorrow. In a heartbeat. I loved it.
I want to go visit Europe so badly. Can we just plan a girls trip?
Yeah.
Because
okay.
have a mutual friend in Germany too.
Do we? Oh, we do. I see. Disconnected. We'll just go over there and see her.
Yes.
We can do pictures over there too, and then it'll be a business trip.
Absolutely. We can write off those expenses. Girl, you smart.
Work it out. So I moved back to Texas. I graduated in 2010, and Casey and I got married in 2012. So I was 19 when we got married. And at the time, he was going to college to be a game warden. I think they called him something different where y'all are at, but it's like fish and wildlife. So he was doing that, and I was working full time. We didn't have kids until a little bit later, but we have a daughter, Hallie. She's 2. I had her in 2016, and I am currently pregnant with our second baby. I'm 30 weeks pregnant, so I'm ready to get this show on the road. But, but that one's due at the end of November.
Oh.
Kind of everything in a nutshell, a really quick nutshell.
Well, let me rewind a little. Tell me, from the boy that you were doing ballroom dancing classes with that you just couldn't stand.
I did not stand him. He was way too much personality.
Okay, so you got to tell me the story. When did things shift? Now you're married.
It's totally crazy. Okay, so he has a younger sister whose name is Madison, and she and I were friends. We were pretty good friends. So when I moved back to Texas, her parents asked if I wanted to stay with them until I could get an apartment. And Casey at the time had moved out and was living down the street with his best friend. They had bachelor pad together in the middle of the country. So we were kind of stuck being around each other for a little while because I was living with his parents, which now is very strange because they're my in-laws. It was interesting because I kind of got to know him as he grew up. Like, I knew him as a kid, and I knew him graduating high school because we graduated the same year, and then now I know him as an adult man, and I enjoy knowing all of his, like, the stages of his life because it lets me know, like, I don't know how to say it. It lets me understand him more. I was only supposed to live with his parents for a couple of months, but I ended up living with them for like a year because we kind of really hit it off really quick once I moved back, and then got married shortly after. So I lived with his parents until we got married. Isn't that just precious?
It's so funny because normally the opposite, where you're like, oh, he still lives with his parents. I feel like he's like, oh, you still live with my parents. So I'm actually curious, if you were going to go out right now, this is such a rabbit trail, sorry, squirrel, and rent a 2-bedroom apartment, about how much do you think you would have to pay for it there?
A 2-bedroom apartment would probably be, I would say $800 to $1,000.
I'm moving to Texas.
Just probably nothing compared to what y'all got going on. I worked at Hobby Lobby, okay?
You worked at Hobby Lobby?
I did, for a long time.
Girl, you are my soulmate / spirit animal, everything in between.
It was a good job. It was a good job.
Okay, so I promised I wouldn't out you, but I kind of have to in a small way. There is no way that you fit that small nutshell into the notes I know are sitting in front of you right now.
I did. You know what? There is one page that has that nutshell on it. And there are 6 pages of bullet points in case you ask me about the health conditions I had as a child, or my jobs, or the titles. I'm very, very note oriented because I'm terrified of looking like a dummy. So here we are.
I like you so much right now.
Personality, I can't help it. If you need somebody to help you organize, I got you.
Yes, please. So I'm glad you said that because I wanted to ask about the health stuff because you described it as just annoying health things. At the same time, as much like I love interviewing, can I just be like totally brutally honest? Sometimes there's that fear of like just being nosy. Like, when am I asking questions that are helpful and when am I just being too nosy?
No, it's totally fine. I think if someone takes the time to mention it, then you're allowed.
Oh, then it's fair game?
Yeah. I mean, they said it.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I'm down.
Girl, I kind of do want to know about that, because that's a big deal for a military family to have something significant enough to root you into one location.
Yeah, and now, like, for me, it just seems like an annoying health thing because I don't have any outstanding complications from it. It's something I kind of have to keep an eye on, but it doesn't bother me day to day. But for my mom, it turned her world upside down. So it's unfair for me to just skip over it and say, oh, it's nothing. She would probably slap me, but.
I was going to say, your mom's listening and like, really, girl? Really?
My mom knows how to get podcasts.
I'm sorry. First you undermine her struggle, and now you just flat out insulted her.
What do you tell her?
It's okay, Mama. I got you.
Yeah, keep me in check. So when my mom was pregnant, my dad was deployed. She went in for like a routine ultrasound, and you know how like doctors like doing your ultrasound, if there's something weird, they kind of get that look like, I'm not allowed to say anything to you, so let me go get somebody that can kind of situation.
Yes.
All of that happened, and my mom was by herself, which every time I think about this, it just makes me want to cry. Like, I feel so bad for her because she really did go through all of it by herself. They told her that I had a heart condition, first of all, which I do. That was not a lie. I have a heart condition. They told me that I was going to be born with my intestines on the outside of my body, that I was going to be blue, like all this stuff, and that she should have an abortion. They told her that she should terminate. And granted, this was in 1992. 92. I forgot what year I was born.
I just felt tremendously older in that moment.
I'm 25.
Did I just grow gray hairs right in front of you?
Whatever. No. So when they told her that she should terminate, she was strong, and she said no, that, God had the situation, and that she didn't believe in that. And and it wasn't just a one-time mention, you should terminate. It was every time she went into the doctor's office, they would say, this baby's going to have a horrible quality of life. This baby's never going to live like a normal child. She can't play sports, which I shouldn't play sports anyway because I'm terrible.
So they were right on point with that.
Yeah, that one they nailed on the head. No, but she didn't. And she had me, and I do have a heart condition. I had what's called an ASD, which means I had a hole in 2 of my ventricles. But I was able to live until I was 2 before they had to do surgery, which was a big deal because they said that I was going to last like 5 minutes. My intestines were on the inside of my body, which is great. But I do have weird things. Like, I have polysplenia, so I have a bunch of little spleens instead of like your normal one spleen.
You're
right up one spleen.
You have a... Never mind the sense of humor you were born with. I'm loving it.
Broken. I'm sorry. You asked podcast.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so and then my intestines are all of my organs are flip-flops. So I think it's called side inversus. So everything's on the wrong side. There's some weird stuff going on in there, which it doesn't bother me now. The heart thing is kind of a problem when you're pregnant. They just kind of keep an eye on you. But other than that, I don't have any outstanding issues or anything. So praise to Jesus for that one.
So at 2, you had open heart surgery?
So when I was born, they had to do intestinal surgery. Since all of my intestines were flip-flopped, they were kind of in a knot. So they had to pull them out and put them in, and it's gross. And then at 2, I had open heart surgery. Yeah. I don't remember it at all. I have pictures from it, but.
Wow. Your mom, I'm assuming your dad still had to continue with regular deployments and...
He was able to be home for the surgery and for a little bit after, but at that point in his career, he was very early on in the Air Force. So, you don't really get a whole lot of hey, I can't really do that. So he just did it. And I swear my mom is the strongest person I know. She handled it like a boss. And I have an older brother. So at the time when I was 2, she had a 6-year-old little boy. And
wow.
But it was a blessing that the hospital that I had my heart surgery was in Charleston, which is why we moved to Charleston. So all of her family was able to help out when they could because they were pretty close. So that was a total God thing that the Air Force moved them there.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, you said like you stayed there for 10 years. Was that primarily because after something that major, they're like, you kind of want to be with the same doctors and things? Did they anticipate complications or was it more like a safety?
I think there is some sort of protocol to where if you have a heart surgery, that they want to keep you close to that hospital where you had the heart surgery for a certain amount of years. But the main reason we stayed so long is because my dad, he volunteered for a bunch of deployments during that time so that we could stay closer to family. So he was gone a lot, but he was gone to help out my mom with this situation, if that makes sense.
I do not know why. That just made me like, do you see the tears just like well up in my eyes? Your dad literally volunteered to go to war so that you're, okay, I don't know who your dad is, but virtual hugs and I don't even know.
He's pretty great, I will not lie. And he's still in the Air Force. And they're back in Alaska, which is funny because it all started in Alaska and he's about to retire. And
that is incredible. What a story.
You should have my mom on here, apparently. You want me to just leave?
Yeah. Can I have your mom and dad? Can you just scoot to the side? No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm listening to this thinking like you just make so much sense right now. I think there's power in like when there's this legacy left and now here you are, you're living really, and I'm not trying to say this isn't a perfect life, but this beautiful life. I think sometimes it can be easy, and I'm so guilty of this, to forget that we live lives that other people before us have had a tremendous influence into kind of paving the way. And I don't mean that to be unspiritual either. Obviously, God is in it in both ways, right? Like he's put people in our lives, but he's also covered in grace, screw ups of people in our past. You're like convicting me to remember that more, but also like I have a Nana still alive. I'm getting ready to go visit is like, she's part of that legacy for me. And it can be easy to just be like, okay, you've had your time. Now it's my time. You're here. I cannot not let you talk about the journey from living your typical American life. Well, other than your run of the mill one spleen.
Little spleens.
With all your little spleens. And deciding as a family, hey, you know what? We're going to simplify our lives and we're going to build a tiny house.
Let me flip to the tiny house now. And it's funny because people ask me that all the time. Like, why did you decide to live in, a little over 300 square foot? And when we made the decision, we already had a child. We already had our daughter. And so she wasn't 1 yet. And so people are like, you've lost your mind. You've lost your mind. Before we went tiny, I worked full-time in an office job with great benefits, great pay. My husband was already a youth pastor. So, I mean, like, from the outside, we had a great American life. We owned a home. We bought a house. We renovated the house on our own. We were like, we're doing this, And then I fully expected to go back to work after having my daughter. And then I had my daughter. And I was like, no, I can't go back to work. I couldn't do it. And now thinking about it, like, I want to cry. I just couldn't do it. So we sat down and we were like, okay, so how can we make it on one income, or my husband's full-time income and me part-time? Because at the time I did photography kind of on the side, but not a lot. So, well, we can do it if we get rid of our car payment, because we had a car payment. Just one, but we had a car payment. And so we got rid of the car payment. And then we were like, oh, we still can't do it. So we're like, we can do it if we get rid of the house payment, but how are we going to get rid of the house payment? Because our house payment, our mortgage was the same as us renting an apartment. So like that wasn't going to be helpful. And we had cable. Force because All American, you know, and Tiny House Hunters was on. And we would always watch them and be like, we could do this, but we would have to do it our way because all of these layouts are just weird. Like, you can't do that with a kid, you know? It has to be custom to you. And so we were sitting there and I was like, babe, let's just build a tiny house. And he laughed at me. I was like, no, really, we should just build a tiny house and live in it for a couple years, save up some money because he wants to buy property in Texas because he needs to own a piece of his state.
Yes.
Took some convincing. Honestly, Casey was not on board from the get-go. But once we sat down and looked at finances, and I was like, I can stay home and I can do photography full time. We can live in a tiny house. We can save money. You can buy property. And then, you know, it'll be good. We went for it. And luckily, his family is very handy. We have electricians and a general contractor, and Casey's dad is really good with wood, and so we were able to build it ourselves. And it was a hot mess, let me tell you, but it was fun.
So,
though, I won't lie.
I was gonna say, I want to pause on that for a second because, you know, not just tiny house, but there are things in our lives where it's kind of this dream, right? And maybe, like in the case of your tiny house, it comes out beautiful and like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And people look in from the outside and they are just like, wow, this is literally like you're living a dream, which we're not going to totally discredit that there's cool factors. But I also think it's important when there comes to dreams to talk, like real talk.
Yeah.
Dreams take work.
They do.
Yeah. Talk to me about like the idea of building a dream house versus what are some of the stressors, some of the like, okay, we didn't necessarily expect this in the process.
After building a tiny house on a trailer, I should also mention it is on a trailer. And that makes it a big deal only because we were never able to get that trailer level. So making things square on a trailer doesn't really happen. So don't go looking at our house thinking it's square because it's not. It is not. We feel like now, since we built it, you know, our first house on the trailer, we're like, we could build a house on the slab, no problem. This is fine. But it was definitely a lot of work, and it's not all rainbows and puppies living in a tiny house either. But one of the big things I think caught me off guard when we were building the tiny house was in a small space, inches matter, like greatly. And building a house on a trailer, you have a max width, you have a max height, like if you want to haul it anywhere. So we were building the house and, you know, it wasn't quite sturdy where we thought it should be. And so we had to add another 2x4, which on a normal house isn't a big deal, but for our tiny house would have put us over the height limit. So it's stuff that you don't really think about, but it really makes a difference. And then if you add a 2x4 here, then you lose 3 inches in your kitchen and you can't fit your oven where it's supposed to go. So it was a lot of stress and reworking, and we didn't have a plan, like an actual plan from a contractor to follow. We just kind of winged it, which I would not suggest. But I mean, it worked out, and it's beautiful, and I'm obsessed with how it turned out. But you know, like you said, it's not all just the pretty shiplap that's on the walls. Like there's layers and layers and layers of things behind that shiplap that if you took the shiplap off, you would be like, what in the world did they fit? You know, you can tell that we had to work really hard to make it what it is.
Well, I, for one, am so glad that you kept plowing through the difficulty because, girl, seriously, it's beautiful. It leads me to this is going to be my last kind of serious question, and then I have some fun with you with questions. But a lot of people are probably asking themselves, living in a tiny house, you're a mom, so you got one little one running around, you're about to have a second, your husband, you have a dog, which is adorable. How do you find space and time in your relationship with Jesus just to really foster that in the midst of very small space?
with everything that's going on with me being full-time photographer and trying to run around and my husband being a youth pastor, and I think being in full-time ministry, like sometimes you feel like you kind of live in that space with Christ all the time, but you don't really take the time to sit down and have one-on-one Bible study time. So I just recently, with some struggles that we've been going through, was like, I need to sit down and have time with God, like just me, not at church, not, during prayer time or invitation call. I need a daily walk with Christ, before my child is running around. So I've been setting my alarm and getting up before the baby, which is so sad because, as a mom, you want to sleep as long as they will sleep. Getting up, drinking my water since I don't drink coffee, having an actual quiet time with God has been a life changer for me. It really has. And, it's so funny because people are like, oh, you serve in full-time ministry, which that's a whole nother story. They just assume that you can quote the Bible and you've got everything in your back pocket. And you go through the same struggles everybody else does. You go through the same struggles every mom does. And you forget to rely on God. You forget to do your daily walk. And so forcing yourself to do that, even in a tiny house, sometimes I have to sit outside because sometimes my child wakes up, and luckily my husband doesn't have to go to work until a little bit later in the morning. So that helps too.
I think that's such a great reminder, whether tiny house or anything, like there are seasons in our life where sometimes it requires sacrifice to make that space. And how normal is it for the sacrifice to be our sleep? Like giving up sleep. And when my kids were little, that was like my lifeline, was setting my alarm before. And when they got big enough, I remember having, this is terrible, but almost like tricking your kids, but we first taught my toddler, my son who became a toddler first, obviously he's the oldest, but we taught him how to read a digital clock. So this is before those fancy ones came out now that like light up at a certain time. Yeah, we didn't have that option. So I just taught him what 600. That's actually what we used to call it. 600 means you can get out of your bed and come find mom, but not before 600. And so we worked on that for a while. Well, I began adjusting his clock 5 minutes at a time. And the reason being, one, he was pretty small. And so I'm saying barely 2. So 600, he knew that, but that was pretty much the extent of his understanding clocks. But we got to the point where 600 on his clock was 700 on mommy's clock.
You are the smartest mother I have ever heard.
Or the worst. I don't know. But it allowed me to set my alarm for 6, go downstairs. That gave me an hour and it didn't mean that he slept that long. I wasn't you have to go to sleep. It was, don't leave your bed. So he had a basket of books and toys within reach when he woke up, but he was not allowed to actually climb out of his bed. And he wasn't potty trained, so nobody needs to panic. What if he had to pee? You know what? He wore his toilet, so it was fine. But you have to, those are the things that it takes. Now I have teenagers who now I'm guys, you have to wake up before 12:00. Okay. But during the school week, they go to school early. We have to hit the road by 6:45 to get. So for me, it's if I want quiet time, it's got to be I've got to wake up early. But that's kind of for me, it's you know what? This is not a time in my life where that time with God is just going to be the easiest. I just have to be intentional, and I have to be willing to say, this is more important than 30 minutes more sleep. This time.
I've realized the days that I don't get up, that I just ignore the alarm and I just roll over, I'm in such a bad mood, honestly. And I don't know if I'm sure it's because I don't get my quiet time with God. That's God. Hey, get it together. Also, having time without, if you have little children, crying, or you know what I mean? Because they don't always wake up in the best mood. So if you wake up prior to someone crying, it's going to be a good day.
Amen, sister.
So I rely heavily on that quiet time. And my daughter still takes really good naps, which is when I work. And so I'm blessed in that regard.
I want to say that that's like unique to toddlerhood and babies crying when they wake up, but I now have entered the puberty scene with both my daughter, and she's very open about this, so I'm not like revealing, but let's just say we're in it. And so sometimes that means tears at like 6:45 in the morning, and the best kind, the ones that are like, I don't know why I'm crying. I'm just like, it can be anything. So right. I'm with you. If you can wake up before tears, before the, I don't know what to wear, like whatever it is, then glory, hallelujah. Okay, I'm so excited for this. I don't know if you're ready, but girlfriend, it's rapid fire round.
Hey, I don't have notes for this, so I'm going to really try.
It's kind of why I'm excited. Okay, so you are not a New Englander. So before I can start your rapid fire round, I need to know, what coffee place is Texas? Like, would you think like this is the Texas, this is where they go for coffee? I know you don't drink coffee, but do you have like a chain one that's kind of Texas?
We don't have a chain, no. But I mean, because we have Starbucks and everybody still goes to Starbucks is the thing. But in my town, they're very small shop oriented.
Gotcha.
So have a local coffee shop that was opened by a military family. It's called Odd Duck Coffee. They are delicious. And I go there even though I don't drink coffee because they have crepes and they have gelato and they have teas and it's amazing. But they are trying to franchise. So if you see Odd Duck Coffee not in Texas, you can check
I'm
it out.
all over that.
Shout out to Wichita Falls.
So you're going to have like girl chat with your friend. Would you rather text or actually be on a phone call?
Text.
All right. You going for a road trip, heading to visit me, obviously. And you have the choice. You can drive or you can ride. Which would you prefer?
I will ride all day long.
Love it. Okay. I just hypothetically handed you $100 bill. But you can only spend it on something that is fun for you.
You know what? Right now, I would go buy some leggings from that brand that's very expensive that starts with an L. Is it
LuLaRoe?
No, Lululemon?
Lululemon? Yeah, why are they all Lula?
Oh, and I mess it up every time.
I think I call them Lululemon, and that's not what they're called.
It's that Lululemon place.
Yes. The lemon leggings, people.
Well, everybody keeps telling me that their Align leggings are great for maternity and postpartum. And right now, I'm wishing it was fall, so I need me some leggings.
Okay.
They're about $100.
All right, Tiffany's people, if she hasn't had a shower, that's what everybody chip in. She needs those leggings. Stat.
Oh,
all right, girl, what is the last book that you read that you really enjoyed?
That one's actually super easy for me to answer because it's right in front of me. It was Uninvited by Lisa TerKeurst. And
so good.
It just speaks to my soul. It really does.
Yeah, that is such a good book. What is the last movie that you watched that you actually spent money for, whether you rented or went to the theater?
I haven't been to the theater in forever, and where do you even rent movies anymore?
I would say the streaming.
I still think the last movie I saw or paid to see was The Greatest Showman.
And did you love it?
I loved it. I love everybody in that movie. So
it's so good. It's so good.
And I love musicals. I mean, they're so happy.
Oh, there's truth in that. I'm not even a major musical person, but that movie, everyone needs to see it. Okay, last question, because now you're going to see The Greatest Showman. You're headed into the theater, and they allow you to sneak in one of your favorite movie snacks. What do you stuff in your purse?
Movie snacks. It can't be like a meal. I can't say like Lau Mein from...
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. There's no judgment.
I'm going to say Lau Mein from a Chinese restaurant because... who doesn't want to eat Chinese? The Greatest Showman.
Tiffany, you are my favorite person for so many reasons. So, girl, this has been so much fun. I really enjoyed hearing your story, and you've just been a great guest. So thank you for being on Hey Girl.
Thanks for having me. I've had fun, even though I've been like hyperventilating, sweating a little bit over here.
And now I'm like super nervous because you're telling me you have a heart condition and I'm freaking you out. So
I will not have a heart attack, guaranteed.
Hallelujah. I hope all of your spleens are okay.
They're trembling, my little tiny spleens.
I love it. Am I the only one that wants to go build a tiny house now? I have already obsessed over tiny houses. And then seeing the photos of Tiffany's house made me even more obsessed with wanting to live in one someday. But then just hearing her talk about it, even the challenges of it. Here's the thing. That for whatever reason, her whole conversation about building a tiny house just made me think of my own spiritual journey. And she talked about, I believe she used the term, it wasn't all puppies and rainbows, which I love that, by the way, which is true of all of our journeys, right? But the thing that was powerful is basically she said this idea that you learn in building a tiny house on a trailer specifically, that every inch matters, that when you make an adjustment, like it's not a small adjustment, even if it's just an inch. And it got me thinking about my own journey and the fact that these small little inches that I can sway one way or the other may not seem like a big deal in the moment to me. For example, hey, I'm going to shorten my quiet time by, not completely, but just kind of shorten it, get a little bit more sleep, do what I have to do. And maybe in the moment, it seems like no big deal, but over time, the impact that has on my journey is basically feels a whole lot more than just an inch. And I don't know why, but as she was sharing that, this is the image that came to my mind and really challenging me to think about that. What are the things in my life that maybe I compromise on, or little things that I let slide that to me are like, you know what, it's just an inch, not a big deal. But over time, that inch just has a greater impact than just an inch. Her whole interview was exactly what I needed to hear this morning, that, you know what? I need to make sacrifices in order to guard that time between me and God, because my time with the Lord impacts a million other things. And so when I hit snooze and maybe it's 10 minutes that I'm staying in bed longer, it may only feel like an inch, but over time, it definitely has more than an inch of impact on my own journey. So this is what I'm left with today from this interview. And I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm setting that alarm. And I really need to kind of recommit and be willing to make some sacrifices, because I'm going to be honest, when it comes to sleep, I am somebody that could sleep just all the time. I'm not sure that is a gift. Sometimes it feels like one, but I can sleep at night. I can nap during the day. I can just sleep all the time. And I feel genuinely like because I keep active enough and moving enough that when I do slow down, I'm tired enough to sleep. However, it's not always beneficial for me to sleep every single second that I am able to. And in this moment, I'm reminded that I need to wake up to my alarm earlier in the day. I just do. I need to sacrifice another 20, 30 minutes of sleep. And in the grand scheme of things, giving the inch that direction, 30 minutes in a 24-hour day is like an inch. But when I give that inch in a positive direction, I just honestly believe that God can take that and have so much more of an inch of impact in my life in the best possible way. So, listeners, I hope you enjoyed this interview. I really hope that you love Tiffany, because seriously, she's kind of that girl next door that you just want to be friends with, and she's sweet. And here's the thing, I want to bring her out next fall. So if you live in New England and you're like, you know what, I went online, I followed her on Instagram, and I would absolutely hire this girl to be my photographer, I think we should line up some gigs for her out here, call it a business trip, and make it happen. So I know you probably think I'm kidding, but I'm not. Let me know. If you wanted to hire her next fall to do some photos, I really, really, really want to bring her out here. I think it'd be so fun. And the girl needs to see New England. Let's be real. New England in the fall is like nothing else. It is the time of the year where we all who live in New England love, love, love where we live. So no matter where you're at today, if it's cold, if it's hot, if it's raining, stormy, and you can totally turn that into a metaphor for your season of life, but wherever it is, we continue to pray for you here at Hey Girl, that you be encouraged today to run your race in your place, because girl, you got this. It was, thoroughly. I just totally blanked on the word. Hi, my name is Bethany and I run a podcast. It's thoroughly enjoyable. That's the word I'm looking for. Oh, I have a terrible feeling Andy will not cut that out. So I'm just going to embrace this moment. You know what? Just don't always have it together.